Because when I don't look at slides like young people, I will forget the numbers, so I just give the names of the definition. There's no number I can't give of movements of undirected graphs. Graphs give locally finite graphs give special examples of locally finite matrices. And we have a heavy, I'm a graph theorist, so we have a heavy component in this whole mini course, which is 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe, are all graphs. With the, no, not 6, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3 batches of slides. And we are currently in batch 3. This definition can be valid for any graphs, which as we defined in last time. But we are using undirected graph in order to facilitate the examples we have of this matrix, which are usually undirected, locally finite graphs. So we have the facility that the edge connecting two vertices has no direction. It just stands for distance 1. So let x, y be graphs. I'm not going to, this afternoon's lecture, there are something like about at least half of the contents are not in the slides. So you are welcome to come here to take a picture of the board before I erase it. I think that one is not good enough to get everything. So you can use your own phone to take the picture of the board. And I'm not going to write full definition. So just we say that x, y are graphs. This type of graphs. And we, of course, graph theorists usually only consider mappings from the set of vertices to the set of vertices. That's how the books are written and graph theory is taught. We don't worry about that because graph is a space, so we're considering a mapping from space to space, which means we can actually write mapping from x to y. On the other hand, even as we give graphs as a mapping, the graph x is the union of its vertex set and x set. That's no problem, even up to continuum cardinality. So there's no problem, no confusion will arise. F is a mapping from x to y. So we're not writing vx, vy, and lots of things. We want to say I. And now, if, number 1, if we also assume that u, v are vertices. If u is an edge, then if u is an edge implies that f u, f v, this is a juxtaposition, not product, is actually y. You have to see the differences here. There's another line which is slightly different from this one. Then we call f a quasi-homomorphism.
You mean edge of y?
No, just y. Okay. Y is the union of vertex vy union ey. That's why. We just said it. X is equal to vx union ex. Even with the x being a mapping. That's no confusion there. So if f, then f is called a quasi-homomorphism. From x, y. So the morphism part is here. Morphism. So this is a definition of quasi-homomorphism. We are going to see lots of examples, so we're not going to give examples now. We will soon see amazing number of examples. Second one, now Dr. Farooq's definition, he was hinting me. So if U is an edge, it implies that FU, FB must be an edge. Then F is called a homomorphism. This is a very important concept. Homomorphism, very unwell, not very well studied in graphing. Even this point, there should be lots of interesting questions from purely mathematical point of view to study some sorts of homomorphism between graphs, or even endomorphism. Endomorphism is a very unwell studied concept. Automorphism is quite well studied. And if a homomorphism is injective, F is an injective homomorphism. Two of the concepts in here are actually not well even seen in those books. Only those three books I listed in the slides, they have these. This is injective homomorphism. It's called an inclusion mapping or embedding. A graph is included as a subgraph into another. X is included as a subgraph or embedded. Inclusion mapping or embedding. There are lots of embedding questions you can study. But we are not even talking about these questions in this video course. Of course, a surjective homomorphism is called epimorphism. I'll write it, it's not in the slides. If F is surjective, homomorphism, then it's called an epimorphism, usually in mathematics, and other names are there. Or a covering. You can put in there, but cover is fine. So we are actually covering the edges of y by the edges of x in that case. It's surjective. Image of edges are edges, so it's edges of y are completely covered by edges of x. And if such a covering, there are lots of subdivision of this concept. For example, I'm not writing it. If such a covering covers every edge of y by r edges of x, then it's called r-fold cover. We're going to see examples. R-fold cover. And there are lots of beautiful examples out there. 5. I think it's going to be 10 or 12 now because in the slides there are only 4 or 5 of them. So if a bijective homomorphism whose inverse is also a homomorphism, bijective means it has an inverse. An inverse is also homomorphism. We only require it's a homomorphism. Edges there are mapped also by the inverse to the edges in the original graph. Then we call isomorphism. So the isomorphism is F is a bijective homomorphism whose inverse is also a homomorphism. You should really quickly deduce other names for other definitions of this one, even now. It's called an isomorphism. And graphs x and y are called isomorphic. Even if their vertex set is continuous or h set is continuous, doesn't matter. All we require is an ambidextrous. We didn't say the graph is finite infinite or locally finite. Called an isomorphism. And then if there's an isomorphism, we call xy isomorphic. In this case. And this is because x isomorphic y. If I can't control, I think there are going to be at least 3 more, something like 20 concepts here. We will have to be not too much greedy here. So we will only introduce 2 more. One is easier to understand. Say something about this one is actually not in many graph theory books in the library, but in those 3 books, in my slides, namely Maclean's Working Mathematician, and Klapsar and Knauer's monograph, and there's another Hell and Nechetri monograph. Hell and Nechetri, Pavel Hell and Nechetri, Yaroslav Nechetri, they wrote it as a monograph just called graph homomorphisms. So this one is called comorphism. What is this converse of this is true. FUFB is an edge. Implies that UV is an edge. You see, you can combine some of these to get the isomorphism as well. Then F is called a comorphism. Many people don't like it. For example, I have a good friend whose name is Sabidushi, Professor Sabidushi. He's got lots of brilliant PhD students in France and Austria and Canada. But he died in 2000. He died during the COVID, I think. He was coming to South Africa almost every year after retirement. Called the comorphism. For example, he doesn't like this concept. But you cannot really say I like sin x and I don't like cosine x. This is comorphism is like that. Now I will stop with next one because after that there are lots and lots as well. I will stop. This next one is going to take some time. 7.
Professor?
Yes.
Is it possible that F is bijective homomorphism but F inverse is not a homomorphism?
Yes.
Okay.
You should get some examples.
Okay.
Even for finite and directed graphs.
Okay.
Of course, the isomorphism concept is not strict like this in those famous books.
Okay.
It is usually full condition was put there in the books. Now here we are actually being greedy about condition going to right because we want to do less and get more. The last one is called the contraction method, which is, you might have seen this name already earlier in this. This one is requires some special consideration. If V1, these are big V's, V2, Vs is a partition of Vx. This part and endomorphism is not done yet. So automorphism is not done. You see, there are 2 more before this. Let me just erase it. We cannot really be too greedy. It's going to be 2 boards full of definitions. So the homomorphism F from X to X itself is called the endomorphism. An isomorphism from X to X itself is called an automorphism. These are all standard mathematical things. Only that here we are defining this for a special mathematical object, class of objects called graphs. We cannot really live without this, so we have to really write this, even if it's not anywhere in the slide form. And then we come to 9, which is contraction marking. As I said, it's going to no, we will stop there. We will stop there. And we don't want to worry about others. So yet, if V1, V2, Vs, V goes on, it could stop at S, it could be finite, it could be infinite, and in this case, we are also assuming that it's countable. It's a partition of Vx. And for each index set I, F is a mapping, we have to say F is from X to Y. If F inverse Vi, the graph induced by the inverse image of every vertex in Y, which is a subset of the vertex set of X, this set induces a connected subgraph. And connectivity can be checked in polynomial time, even computationally, which means this is a good concept. Then, F is called the contraction marking. This definition is not different from the contraction marking we define for metric spaces. If you regard the graph X to be the union of its vertex and F set, and it is a metric space. We haven't proved, verified that the graph is a metric space yet. You should do that. That's probably I should write it as an exercise question. Then F is called the contraction marking. This is not different from the contraction marking of metric spaces. Only that it is specialized to graphs. One more definition. This is not a morphism. So let's see the XYB graphs. If Z is a subgraph of X, and F from Z to Y is a contraction marking, then X is called, Y is called the minor of X. And this is denoted Y less, not greater than X. This is the notation for minor. It's binary relation between graphs. And this concept is extremely important, and it resulted in one of the nomination of fields before, a long time ago, 80s. So this is, in other words, the following diagram is commutative. That is, this is in my paper, but not elsewhere. Commutative. Which diagram? This diagram. I will write it this side. Z has the inclusion marking eta from Z to X. and there is a contraction mapping F from Z to Y. We said Z from Z to Y. This is exists. Then there exists a minor inclusion mapping mu from Y to X. If this diagram is commutative in a symmetric sense that each arrow is governed by an existential quantifier, then we immediately have a minor relation from Y to X. This understanding is extremely useful. Now we need to give examples. It's going to be lots of balls. So let us look at finite undirected graphs, which are very beautiful ones. So let us look at first of all, look at this graph. You will recognize it, it's very everywhere in mathematics. I can't draw this nicely because I'm very good at drawing using computer, but my hands are not good to draw. Maybe I should need someone who can sketch. This is the skeleton of three-dimensional cube, which has 5 different definitions. Each one of them leads to one major mathematics field. You have to really understand this. Of course, this is only with a prefix of 3. If the prefix is any natural number, then you have a whole class of graphs. And this is usually denoted by Q, 3 cube, given by K2. This is one of the K2s. And then we're going to define it soon. By a direct product with another, you have a circuit of length 4, and then direct product with another K2, you get the whole cube. So it's a threefold product, direct product. We're going to define later, but this is all well known. I use this symbol, and we're going to explain this. Complete graph on vertex, 2 vertices, nestedly, iteratively direct producted with itself 3 times. Then this is the cube. Of course, this is also a cube. This is a cube. This is 1-dimensional cube. This is 2-dimensional cube. Oh, K2, box K2. This is Q2, 2-dimensional cube. And this is 3-dimensional cube. And then another K2 multiplying this way, you have another copy here. Corresponding vertices are joined by an edge. Then you have 4-dimensional unit cube. These are also in other fields of mathematics as well. So this is one of the examples we will have. Now, if we have drawn this graph already, given, I want to tease our students that, how about this graph here? I'm going to still draw it somehow these eight vertices, and then those edges are still there. Those with a good imagination can immediately see that what we are doing is, how about this graph? Is this graph familiar? Or let me ask, is this the same graph as that one? There is an automorphism. There is an isomorphism.
These are same. Yes.
Just by inside this is
Yes, Professor.
Yeah. Somehow rotated. It doesn't matter rotated. Graphs only, what is important is existence is important.
But these are isomorphic.
So these two are isomorphic. So there is an isomorphism from this to that. Isomorphism iota, isomorphism. Or that's an automorphism. Now let us map these 2 vertices to the same vertex, the nearby vertices to the same vertex, then we will have a mapping 4 vertices. And image of edges are images of these 3 edges are that edge, images of those 3 edges are that edge, and so on. And these 2 vertices are not adjacent, so this is a homomorphism. It is not a quasi-homomorphism. Quasi-homomorphism would give you image of edges could be a vertex. But this is a homomorphism. So this is a homomorphism, first of all. Yeah. Homomorphism. Not only so, if you look at every edge here, how many edges are in the inverse image? There. If you look at this edge, how many edges there are mapped to this edge?
3.
1, 2, 3, 3 of them. Exact every edges have inverse image, 3 of them. So it's a threefold covering as well. So it's an epimorphism, threefold covering. Threefold cover. If this is not already from very familiar things, you see surprising things coming out. Let me quickly get now slightly more romantic. We still draw these vertices nearby. We still put the vertices nearby. I have to be careful. I have nice drawings of this in the computer, but this is not in the slides now. Let me be careful. Not only so, I want to really shift this slightly to the left. Which is left? This is left. And then we still have the circuits of length 4, the two-dimensional cubes here, one copy, another copy, two-dimensional cube. Now, that vertex is adjacent to this one. This vertex is adjacent to this one. That vertex is adjacent to this one. That vertex is adjacent to that one. Is this that graph? Yes, because we just, what we did is we just interchanged these two vertices and those two vertices at the same time. So we have that. So this is Q3. Not only so, we see that now we map the nearby vertices to the same vertex, we still have 4 vertices. This is the edge because this edge, these two edges map to this one, those two edges map to this one, those two edges, and those two edges map to that one, those two edges map to this one. This is K4, the complete graph of order 4. This mapping G is a homomorphism. Image of every edge is an edge. Not only so, and the edges are not mapped to vertices. Not only so, every edge in this Y, in this graph Y, which is K4, the inverse image is 2 edges, 2 independent edges. So this is a twofold cover. Twofold cover of K4 by Q3. These are all well known to everybody, but these things are now, I think, somewhat surprising. Of course, if you have read Govt and drawing books, then these are all the examples there. So this is an example of a homomorphism, which is not quasi-homomorphism, and it's also a twofold cover. We have to give one example of quasi-homomorphism, which is not a homomorphism here. So let us consider mapping H. Still from this one. What we're going to do is we're going to map all those 4 vertices into one vertex. And these 4 are still retained. So this copy of 2 cube is retained. Those 4 vertices are mapped to one vertex. And there is an edge from this vertex to those 2. There are edges from that vertex to these 2 vertices. Those 2 edges are mapped to a vertex. Those 2 edges are mapped to a vertex. All images of all other edges are edges. So this is an example of a quasi-homomorphism. Quasi-homomorphism, which is not a homomorphism. We put up actually now contraction. Let us just map these 2 vertices into one vertex. That's a contraction. What do we have? We have those 6 vertices as of two cubes untouched. And those two still have an edge. And we're mapping that edge into a vertex. But that edge is just this, that. And that was originally just to this one, that was originally to that one. So this corresponds to the partition here. Let me draw it in another color. The partition of vertices into parts, so that each part induces a connected subgraph. By agreement, complete graphs are connected. Complete graph of one vertex is connected. It has no path, so it will be absolutely true. And then this subgraph, this set also induces a connected subgraph because there is an edge there. So this satisfies the definition of a contraction mapping. Edge dash contraction. If you want to keep this record, come and I'm going to use this one. Take photos of the two photos. That one I have it, so this one. This one I probably also have it. So may I erase?
So could you explain a little bit more about contraction and what is this notation actually?
This notation.
Yeah.
So this is the inverse, this is the vertex in
X.
In Y. Because it's a...
You said this is a partition of...
Yeah, partition. This is a vertex in Y, not big V.
Okay.
So every vertex in Y induces goes back to one of those big vertices, and that each of them induces a connected subgraph. So this is actually equal to VI, big VI. So we should have written that. It's not, but I wanted to say that mapping whose inverse image induces connected subgraph as well. So that's no problem. We just say it as this. So X, I usually use this vertical bar with subscript to indicate spanning or induced. I don't usually use this except I'm in linear algebra. This is a very compact, good notation. May I erase this board now? Yes. Now we're going to give examples of